All right, let's discuss this latest in Porter's trial with our legal guys joining me now, Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor. Hello, good to see you. And, oh, it looks like you're in an office. Are you actually in New York this weekend?
No, in Vegas, Sin City.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, there we go. Back to the norm. All right, back to Vegas. Avery Freeman is civil rights attorney and law professor joining us as well. All right, from Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. All right, good to see you. So, Richard, you first. Now, this outcome is potentially precedent-setting with 5 other officers who are going to go on trial. What did you hear during this trial that you expect closing arguments to focus on?
Well, Fred, from what I've read from the trial, and I was not there, but from what I've read, it appears to me this prosecution should not have been brought. I don't think it's a winnable case. I don't think they have any chance to win this case unless the jury comes in with a preconceived notion and idea and mission to convict everybody in all these cases. Here, the burden is so high on the government to prove that this Officer Porter deviated from the conduct of a reasonable police officer under those circumstances and that he knew he was endangering the life of Freddie Gray.
Right.
That is a very, very high standard, Fred. They have not proven that. The officer testified, and it's a case-by-case decision whether you put the defendant on the stand. Rule of thumb is usually no way. But here they had to. And I believe he saved himself. I think his testimony was credible. He said he spoke to Freddie at the 4th stop when the prosecution says Freddie was basically dead. He spoke to him on the 4th stop. He put him in the chair. The issue with respect to the seatbelts, which will permeate this entire case and was developed here, Fred, is that it was an administrative procedure. It was not something that was...
It was a guideline. It was a guideline, right.
Avery.
It was administrative.
Well, here's the difference. Here's the difference. I'm actually in somewhat accord in what's being said here because when Porter testified for a great case, he said that in transporting prisoners, he's transported 150 prisoners. And you know how many were belted up? 0. So I think in that respect, if the question is reasonable doubt, I think the defense has shown that. I mean, the arguments are going to focus in on this question. They want to convict him of negligent homicide based on the fact that he didn't hook up a seatbelt, and I think that's going to be a problem. There were equal number of witnesses, basically. Prosecution had about 16, defense had about 12. But bottom line, I think there's reasonable doubt. I don't know why they tried this case first. I think there could have been stronger ones, but let's see what happens. And it's going to affect the other 5 defendants that will go on trial starting in January.
More importantly, Fred, 2 issues come out here that destroy the prosecution's case. One, it's the position of the prosecution that by the 4th stop, Freddie's spinal cord was severed. Well, Officer Proctor testified not only did he speak with Freddie, but he sat him up in the chair.
Between 4 and 5, right. The experts have blown that up, by the way.
Never could have happened.
The experts have said that the death occurred, but...
David, let me finish, please. And then number 2, the most important point here is that, Fred, Officer Porter said he told the driver, who was the captain of the ship, he told him that Freddie did not want to go to the police, to the hospital, but you may want to take him there. And the officer,
and that's what he did. He told his superior to do that.
So then, Avery, I think what Richard is spelling out, and then it also says that there was some compassion, perhaps. I mean, the first point being made by both of you that this was the norm. If no one was seat belted, then there were no extenuating circumstances here. At least that will be the argument, right? That Freddie Gray was not treated any differently. And now we're talking about this, conversation that perhaps there was some compassion that Mr. Porter was exhibiting, and how might that help influence the jury, Avery?
Well, that's everything. That's the credibility of taking the chance of putting the defendant on. Look, somebody has to be accountable for the death of Freddie Gray. Is this the case based on what we're seeing up to this point? I think we're in accord. It is unlikely. I think they're going to get a conviction for this kind of homicide. It's going to be very
flip side to that, though, Richard, would the argument also still be made that even if this is the norm, if it is inhumane, since that is one of the charges, wouldn't that also be an indictment not just on the officer who is carrying out the norm, but it would also be an indictment against the system saying this norm, there's something wrong with it, and it potentially leads to someone's death?
Yeah. Fred, it was an administrative position to seatbelt in. The area is not very large. He was shackled. He was in a seat. He was there. Would a reasonable police officer under those circumstances who found a prisoner on the floor, what would they do at that point? What would their actions be? What he did was he told the driver, he had a conversation with Freddie, and according to the government's position here, Freddie's spinal cord was severed by the fourth stop. So he could not have. They blew it up.
Well, the experts have blown that up.
Case.
The experts have blown that up. Yeah, bottom line, experts have blown that up. There's reasonable doubt here. This is going to be a very difficult one for the prosecutors to win. But again, there are 5 to go, including, coming up, the driver of the van, Cesar Goodson Jr., and that's really going to be the big case of this case.
They kind of dumped on the driver, Fred. That's something that came out of this. They dumped on the driver. So he's going to have a little higher
Well, that's right.
Well, his trial will be upcoming as well, and we'll hear what the response might be from him. All right, Avery Friedman, Richard Herman, thanks so much to both of you gentlemen. Always good to see you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, we'll be right back.